I mean, we loved him dearly.
Yeah, Nolan was like a brother to us, and I can say without a doubt, nobody wants to know what happened to him more than we do. I mean, we want to know what.
I mean, Nolan was like a brother to all of us. I mean, we loved him dearly.
Nolan was like a brother to us, and I can say without a doubt, nobody wants to know what happened.
This loss, this grief, this pain, it's different. It's insurmountable.
Well, I can go ahead and say that as you posted that clip of all of us on the boat, you know, as it's rolling, not rolling, but right there sitting in the water, Wyatt's on the phone with Cito in that clip. I mean, he's on the phone. Wouldn't you think that you would have seen Nolan on the bottom of on the floor or something, or scrambling around, or everybody in a pot, like in a small space on the boat looking at him or something? I mean, it's just so crazy to think that, why would we call Cito if we have a dead body on the boat? I mean, why would we call the Coast Guard? You know, why would we do the things we did if we know we killed somebody? And then another following up on that is, why aren't we in jail yet? I mean, we're not geniuses. There's no way we could have done a murder. I mean, there's no way we could have covered it up, especially out there with that many people. Go ahead.
Here with a Nolan Wells update, and something a lot of people are pointing out is Warren and how much his face has changed since just the first interview a few weeks ago to right now. And it begs the question, like, he looks like he has Ozempic face, in my opinion, but is something eating away at him? Now, obviously, this has to be very stressful, all of a sudden becoming this unwanted celebrity. He talks about where he went into a restaurant and was threatened and whatnot, but this doesn't look like weight loss by a man who lost his best friend and he just hasn't slept or hasn't eaten and is just doing everything he can to figure out what happened to his friend. It looks like something is literally eating away at his soul. That's all I'm saying. It's just my opinion. What do you guys think about it? Let me know in the comments. And something interesting somebody just sent me, that Fart Jr., allegedly his boat on the MDMR report states that the searched vessel was called a Tide craft, right? On July 8th. But witnesses show he used a Tide line boat on July 4th. Now, this is raising a few questions because it was stated by witnesses and shown in multiple pictures on the 4th of July. It seems that the boat that he was on at that day to go to Horn Island was actually a Tide line, not a Tide craft. Sounds very familiar, which does not share the same characteristics with the Tide craft. The Tide line does not share characteristics with the Tide craft. Stay with me. Is it possible, just throwing this out there, just asking questions in my opinion, that a different boat was presented to the officers and searched on July 8th, which would explain why no GPS data was recovered from the boat data extraction? I don't know. What do you guys think? Is it possible that something happened on that boat that would justify it to be hidden or even destroyed? I don't know, just asking questions here. Did the investigators search, seize, or took any pictures of the boat on July 8th that could confirm that it wasn't the same boat that he used on the 4th? I don't know. Things that make you go, And you can even see here in the MDMR report, right down at the bottom in the yellow, it says Tide craft, not Tide line. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Here's something I just saw that's interesting. Katie Seymour Hudson messaged that Boogie Lowdown guy and said to him that her son, Warren, left Nolan on the island at 5. But I thought all the reports showed that they left at 4:30 p.m. So you see, it's like kind of hard to tell. It's like, was the mom on the island? Was the judge on the island. When Warren is saying my mom was on the other side of the island, which mom? Because a lot of times stepmom, you will call them mom also, because sometimes that stepmom is more of a mom than your own real mom. So we don't know. But my point is, why did Warren's real mom, biological, say that they left Nolan on the island at 5 when we know they left at 4:30? Are people lying? I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the... There's this odd letter. It looks like a journal entry that just hit the internet. Let me know what you guys think. It says July 4th. We go to the party, the island. We had alcohol. I may have drank half, if not a whole seltzer throughout the entire time. Was worried about returning for his second season, and he didn't want to ruin his chances. Cell service sucks here. Imagine something happening to you and not being able to call out for help. Nolan side-eyes and dismisses the comment. Nolan snaps a photo or a video of scenery or something. Wyatt had been sniffing the bug shug all morning. Wyatt tries to grab his phone and has to put it, and Nolan jerks his phone because this feels like what would lead to Nolan's death later. Approximately 12 hours later, Nolan was already hanging on an inkling he shouldn't go to the pool party. Him and Wyatt have had some animosity for a while because Nolan was back and forgave easily and didn't hold grudges. He was the peaceful friend, the conflict solver in most of his social group. He had several, maybe 3 friends, grumps. I can't read the rest of that. Nolan was only put on the boat to be transferred back to the island around 3 to 5 a.m. July 6th. That's why he wasn't found initially on the island. He was stored somewhere cool and dark to keep from decompositioning a minute, but it was summer. He already started to have a hint of smell permeating the shaded area. It's an area of property him and his friends hiked or hung around in, and yes, it's one of his friends' properties. Somebody got a farm or hiking trail, maybe both. Somebody cried, somebody is scared to speak, somebody was threatened. All of them are being haunted. Nolan decided to unfriend this group, and they couldn't accept it, the ultimate motive. Again, it's hard to read this letter. The writing kind of looks that of a female. I don't know. What do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comments.
The family is now seemingly being accused of wrongdoing because they haven't handed the phone over yet. What happened back on, I've got a big note here, phone July 15. Isn't that when the family had a meeting and said, yes, you can have the phone, but they want independent examiners there at the same time? Right. Tell me, July 15, what happened?
July 15th, the attorney for the parents of Nolan met and said, yes, we want to give over the phone, but we want someone in the middle here, someone from the side, an expert to analyze the phone. It appeared everyone agreed. Then all of a sudden they get a letter saying, we want the phone and you have 24 hours to send it over. The DA sent that. And the parents were out of town and said, wait, we don't have the time to do that. Hence the narrative that they're not cooperating. Now they say, Nolan, we have our experts on standby this week, pick a day. And not to mention on the 19th would have been Nolan's 19th birthday, a difficult week for the family, but they say, hey, we'll give up his cell phone. We want someone, a mediator, if you will, an expert in the middle.
Told CNN one thing plainly. He had never known Nolan to stay behind while his friends left. The boat departed Horn Island at 4:31 p.m. Nolan Wells was not on it. While Nolan Wells was still on Horn Island, something was happening on the water that the official narrative has never fully accounted for. At some point after the group departed the island at 4:31 p.m., a distress call was placed to Sea Tow, a private marine assistance company that operates similarly to roadside assistance but for vessels on the water. The caller reported that the bilge pump on the boat had failed and that the vessel was taking on water. The position reported placed the boat in approximately 31 feet of water. The name given to Sea Tow was Jerry Ackerson, the holder of the membership account. Jerry Ackerson, as established, is Wyatt Pyron's father and the owner of Ocean Marine Group. The call was placed. A dispatch unit was never sent. The call was canceled before any assistance arrived. No public explanation for that cancellation has been provided by anyone connected to the group or by investigators. That sequence, distress call made, distress call canceled, no help dispatched, no explanation offered, is one of the first documented irregularities in the post-island timeline. Now the GPS data. The Mississippi Department of Marine Resources recovered GPS records connected to the vessels involved that day. To understand why those records matter, it helps to know how marine GPS systems store information. They record 3 distinct types of data. Waypoints are positions manually marked by the operator, specific locations the user deliberately saved. Routes are planned paths programmed into the system before travel. Tracks are different from both. Tracks are automatic. The system records the vessel's actual movement continuously, logging positions at regular intervals regardless of whether the operator does anything. Tracks are the closest thing to an objective record of where a boat actually went. The GPS tracks for Wyatt Pyron's vessel were present in the recovered data. The GPS tracks for Jerry Ackerson's vessel were also present. Bart Addington's GPS tracks were absent. That absence has not been publicly explained. The data that was recovered documented 4 distinct movements made by the boat after leaving Horn Island. Warren Hudson told investigators that after leaving the island, the group went directly to Fort Bayou. The GPS data does not support that account. The records show a dock stop logged at 5:44 p.m., a stop that Warren Hudson did not mention to investigators. Where that stop was, how long it lasted, and what occurred there has not been addressed in any public statement from the group or their attorneys. There is one more data point that stands on its own. The coordinate position reported verbally during the sea tow distress call does not match the coordinate visible in a photograph taken of the GPS unit itself at or around the same time. 2 different numbers. One spoken to the dispatcher. One visible on the screen. They do not agree with each other. That discrepancy has never been publicly explained by anyone. Now the phone. After the group returned to the mainland, Nolan's phone ended up inside Jack Spatalo's grandparents' house in Ocean Springs. It was found sitting on top of an Xbox. Christine Wonsley had not received a call from anyone in the group. She had not been told her son was missing. She tracked the phone herself using location data, found the pin inside that house, and had a friend go and retrieve it. When the phone was in hand and she was able to look through it, messages had already been deleted from the device. Warren Hudson has stated publicly and on record that nobody accessed or deleted anything from Nolan's phone. That denial is documented. So is the deletion. The group did not contact Christine Wonsley until approximately 11 p.m. that night. Her son had been left on a federally protected barrier island with no cell service, no shelter, and no way off. The people who brought him there were back on the mainland for hours before his mother was told anything was wrong. The GPS data does not match the story. The phone location does not match the story. The canceled sea tow call has no explanation. A grand jury will hear all of this evidence. When they do, Unsolved Files will have the complete breakdown ready for you. Subscribe now and turn on notifications. This case is moving fast and you do not want to find out about the next development from someone else's comment section. While the official investigation was producing sealed reports and preliminary findings, a separate layer of scrutiny was developing in public. Independent investigators, people with no subpoena power, no law enforcement authority, and no legal team, were downloading raw files, enhancing photographs, cross-referencing timestamps, and comparing the visual record against the statements the group had made. What they found did not resolve the case. But it produced 5 specific anomalies that the official narrative has not addressed. Each one is presented here for what it is: documented observation, not confirmed conclusion. Anomaly 1. The limb on the deck. The sea tow distress call generated video footage. That footage was obtained and reviewed by Brandon Tatum of the Officer Tatum Show, whose platform made it more widely available for public analysis. When independent investigators enhanced the footage frame by frame, they identified a specific detail at the moment the tow strap connects and the hull jolts from the tension. At that exact moment, what appears to be a hand or foot rises upward from the floor of the deck, visible for a fraction of a second before disappearing below the camera's sightline. In the nationally televised interview that Warren Hudson, Jack Spatalo, and Morgan Seymour gave alongside their attorneys, Warren stated directly that nobody was on the floor of the boat during the distress event. Nobody scrambling. Nobody below. The visual detail in the footage and that statement are in direct conflict with each other. Shortly after this detail became widely discussed online, the video was removed from the platform where it had been posted. Anomaly 2, the figure in red shorts. Katie McCormick posted a Snapchat photo from Horn Island on July 4th. When independent investigators took that photo and increased the exposure on the background, a figure became visible on the shoreline. The figure is wearing red shorts. The photo's timestamp places it at approximately 6 p.m. This matters because of what Warren Hudson said about his brother Carter. Warren confirmed that Carter was involved in a physical altercation on the beach that afternoon and that he then brought Carter onto the Triton to hang out with the group. If Carter was on the Triton when it departed Horn Island at 4:31 p.m., he was heading back toward Ocean Springs. He cannot simultaneously appear on a different shoreline at 6 p.m. The figure in the photo has not been definitively identified. The timeline conflict it creates has not been resolved. Anomaly 3, the bracelet. Independent investigators working to identify individuals in boat footage from that day were archiving photographs of Bart Addington Jr. for tattoo comparison purposes. In the process, they found something else. An archived photo of Bart shows a distinctive set of wristbands on his wrist, an unusual combination specific enough to be recognizable. When those investigators examined footage of an unidentified figure on a vessel from that day, the same wristband combination appeared on that figure's wrist. The vessel in the footage is not Bart's boat. The seating arrangement and the boat cover design confirm it is a different vessel. If Bart was on a boat that was not his own, who was operating his boat? That question has no public answer. Bart retained attorney Russell Latino as scrutiny of his role intensified. His family has reported that he was subjected to harassment and death threats, which the FBI is investigating. Anomaly 4, Brooks and the fourth boat. Bart Addington has a younger brother named Brooks. The two share a strong family resemblance but have a notably different jawline. Brooks was mentioned once, briefly, by name in one of the friend's prior media interviews, dropped into conversation without context or follow-up. Independent investigators compared Brooks's physical features to an unidentified driver visible in Triton footage from that day. No definitive identification has been made. The question of who was driving Bart's boat on July 4, 2026 remains officially unresolved. Anomaly 5, the security footage. Before the trip and after returning from Horn Island, the group gathered at the Ocean Springs home belonging to Jack Spatalo's grandparents. That house has security cameras. Those cameras would have recorded exactly what time people arrived back from the water, who stepped through the door, what condition they were in when they did, and crucially, when Nolan's phone and belongings entered that house relative to when Christine Wonsley was first contacted. That footage has never been publicly released. Additionally, Jack Spatalo's grandfather canceled a private tow on the evening of July 4th. That cancellation has not been explained publicly by anyone connected to the family or the investigation. 5 anomalies. None of them resolved. All of them documented. As public pressure on the case intensified through July and into August 2026, Warren Hudson, Jack Spatalo, and Morgan Seymour made a calculated decision to go on camera. They did not go alone. Attorney J. Tyler Cox had already been retained to represent the 3 young men. Shortly before the interview, a second attorney was brought into the legal team, Edward Andrew Paltzik, a New York-based defamation lawyer who had previously represented Donald Trump in high-profile disputes with CBS/Paramount, The New York Times, and the BBC. Brandon Tatum of The Officer Tatum Show, whose platform had been actively covering the case, described the addition of Paltzik as a signal that the legal strategy was shifting towards something more aggressive in the public arena. That read turned out to be accurate. The interview itself was nationally televised. Paltzik sat alongside the 3 young men and ran the room. What he said matters. What he did not say matters more. Throughout the broadcast, every time Paltzik made a proclamation of innocence, he named the same 3 people. Morgan, Jax, Warren. Those 3 names appeared in every declaration of protection he made. If you lied about Morgan, Jax, or Warren, he warned there would be legal consequences. Morgan, Jax, and Warren left the island at 4:30. Morgan, Jax, and Warren had nothing to do with Nolan's death. 3 names. Repeated. Consistent. Deliberate. One name was never in that circle. Carter Hudson. Warren's own brother. The 17-year-old whom Warren himself had acknowledged was in a physical altercation on the beach that day. The person Warren said he pulled away from a fight and brought onto the boat. Carter was not named in a single proclamation of innocence during that interview. In legal practice, when an attorney consistently draws a boundary around specific individuals while leaving others in the same group outside of it, that pattern is not accidental. Attorneys are precise with language. Paltzik is more precise than most. Paltzik also warned viewers directly that people who had made false claims about his clients should retract those statements before finding themselves in a courtroom. He framed it as inevitable legal action. The group laughed briefly after that threat was delivered, a short, shared moment that was captured on camera and has since become one of the most analyzed clips connected to this entire case. Real defamation action does not begin with a televised warning to unnamed people. It begins with cease and desist letters delivered through proper legal channels to specific named individuals. No verified cease and desist letters from Paltzik's team have been publicly confirmed as sent to any individual as of the time this documentary was produced. Here is what Paltzik did not bring to that interview. He did not produce the security camera footage from Jack Spatalo's grandparents' house. He did not show text message screenshots between the group and Katie McCormick. He did not present phone records. He did not release Life 360 location data. He did not address the GPS coordinate discrepancy. He did not explain the canceled CTO call. He issued warnings instead of evidence. On August 7th, Warren Hudson and Jack Spatalo returned to Horn Island with both Paltzik and Cox, reportedly to study the layout and dynamics of the island. A photograph of Paltzik standing on the beach with Warren Hudson was not obtained by a journalist. It was provided directly to CNN by Paltzik himself. Warren's father, Ben Hudson, has separately and publicly stated his intention to sue Ben Crump for statements Crump made while representing the Wells family, alleging those statements defamed his son. That claim is on record. No member of the group has been charged with any crime in connection with Nolan Wells's death. Christine Wonsley reported her son missing at midnight on July 4, 2026. That report triggered what would become a multi-agency search operation. But before that search even launched, the official record had already started accumulating problems. Sheriff John Ledbetter of the Jackson County Sheriff's Office gave a statement to ABC News in the early days of the investigation. He told them that from what investigators understood, Nolan chose to stay on the island. That statement was made publicly before the autopsy was complete, before any forensic findings had been reviewed, before independent investigators had examined a single piece of GPS data. The conclusion that Nolan's absence was a matter of personal choice was offered to the public while the case was still, by any reasonable standard, open. The office also declared no signs of foul play early in the investigation. That determination arrived before the sealed state autopsy had produced results that were shared with anyone outside the prosecutor's office. Inside the official paperwork, the problems continued. Lieutenant Odom's incident report, filed at 1:30 a.m., referred to the woman Nolan allegedly stayed behind to speak with as an unknown female. The group knew Katie McCormick. They had been on the water near her group for hours. Her name was not an unknown quantity to the people who gave investigators their account that night. It was simply not provided. Additionally, the friends described Nolan to investigators as wearing black shorts on the day he disappeared. Photographs taken on Horn Island that day show him in blue-gray shorts. Neither discrepancy, the unnamed woman, the wrong clothing description, was publicly flagged or addressed by the investigating office. The search launched on the morning of July 5th. It involved the U.S. Coast Guard, the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, and the National Park Service. Nolan's parents, Christine Wonsley and Elmore Wonsley, along with his former high school football coach, were out on the water themselves during the search aboard a separate vessel. MDMR records confirmed they made contact with officers during the operation. Drone flights were deployed over the western side of Horn Island but were cut short. The excessive heat caused the battery packs and the equipment to swell, grounding the flights before the search was complete. At 8:45 a.m. on July 6th, a park ranger discovered a body in the water off the northwest end of Horn Island. On July 7th, Jackson County Coroner Bruce Lynn Jr. confirmed through DNA testing and dental records that the body was Nolan Xavier Wells. The official investigation had found him. It had not yet found answers. The state medical examiner's office completed its autopsy on the morning of July 7, 2026. The same day Bruce Lynn Jr. confirmed Nolan's identity through DNA and dental records. Those autopsy results were not released. They have not been released since. District Attorney Angel Myers McElrath addressed this directly in a video statement on July 23. She confirmed that the autopsy findings would be withheld from the public until they are presented to a grand jury. She explained that every death in the county that is not the result of natural causes or a non-criminal traffic accident is presented to a grand jury as standard procedure, a process she stated she had followed throughout her career. The sealed autopsy is not procedurally unusual. What it means in practice is that the public, the family, and the independent investigators working this case have no access to what the state found inside that examination room on July 7th. The family did not wait for the state to share its findings. They commissioned their own. The independent autopsy was funded by Colin Kaepernick through his Know Your Rights Camp initiative, which has supported independent forensic examinations in other cases involving Black Americans who died in disputed circumstances. The examination was performed by Dr. Roger A. Mitchell Jr., a board-certified forensic pathologist, the former chief medical examiner for the District of Columbia, and the current president of the National Medical Association. Dr. Mitchell conducted the examination on July 10th in Washington, D.C. By the time he received the body, it had already undergone the state's autopsy and had been through significant decomposition. The state examination had removed and dissected Nolan's organs, including the lungs and the internal neck structures. That is standard forensic practice. It is also the reason Mitchell could not directly observe the airway or lungs for the presence of water, could not examine the stomach contents, and could not directly assess the neck for signs of injury. He stated plainly in his report that he could not rule out neck injury as a contributor to or cause of death, precisely because the tissue that would have answered that question was no longer available to him. What Mitchell did find was red discoloration in the soft tissue at the back of Wells' head. He was careful with his language about it. The discoloration, he wrote, could represent decomposition-related changes to the muscle tissue. Could also represent blunt force impact to the back of the head and neck. The level of decomposition made a definitive determination between those two explanations impossible. He found no apparent external lacerations or fractures on the body's surface. He noted that decomposition can obscure the presence or absence of bruising on skin, particularly during a second examination. His report listed 7 outstanding questions, including what led Nolan to enter the water, whether water was present in the airway, and whether a brain bleed had occurred. His conclusion, stated on record, was that non-accidental factors contributing to or causing Nolan's death could not be ruled out. Cause and manner of death, undetermined. Ben Crump announced those findings on July 22 at the NAACP's 117th National Convention in Chicago. Dr. Mitchell did not attend in person. Crump read directly from the report. Tyler Perry covered the cost of Nolan's funeral. Crump has formally requested that the state's retained tissue and organs be made available to Dr. Mitchell for a complete follow-up examination. That request remains pending. What began as a local missing persons report in Jackson County, Mississippi has become a case with federal attorneys, congressional letters, national civil rights leadership, and a grand jury timeline measured in weeks rather than months. The FBI was already on the ground assisting local investigators before the case reached national scale. Ben Crump's legal team moved beyond press conferences into formal legal action, issuing subpoenas to Meta and TikTok for data connected to Nolan's accounts. Messages, activity logs, any digital record the platforms retained that local investigators had not yet accessed. Attorney Liza Park, part of Crump's firm, has been working alongside Eric Hertz on the independent inquiry. Discussions between the family's legal team and the Jackson County District Attorney's Office about a joint examination of Nolan's cell phone are ongoing but had not been finalized at the time this documentary was produced. On August 13th, Eric Hertz told NPR directly that based on the evidence timeline he had reviewed, he believed the case could go before a grand jury within 30 days. He did not name who might be the subject of that review. He did not need to. The grand jury will determine whether the evidence supports criminal charges. That process is now in motion. One day earlier, on August 12th, Congressional Black Caucus Chair Yvette D. Clarke formally wrote to Attorney General Todd Blanche and FBI Director Kash Patel requesting a federal civil rights review of the case. The letter demanded a written response within 7 days and asked the Department of Justice to determine whether a separate federal investigation, including a possible civil rights investigation, was warranted. On August 13th, the DOJ confirmed it had received the letter and that appropriate personnel within the department were reviewing it carefully. That same day, a press conference was held in Atlanta alongside the National Association of Black Journalists convention. Standing together were Congresswoman Lucy McBath, Ben Crump, Eric Hertz, Elmore Wonsley, Christine Wonsley, and Reverend Al Sharpton. McBath called for a full federal investigation into what happened to Nolan Wells. Sharpton pointed out that Horn Island is federal property under the National Park Service, arguing that jurisdictional standing for DOJ involvement was already established. McBath connected the case to her own history. Her 17-year-old son Jordan Davis was killed in 2012, and stated that families should not have to grieve without answers while local investigations stall. The Wells family GoFundMe raised $320,000 by July 16th. Support came from musicians Eric Benet and MC Light and filmmaker Spike Lee, among others. A separate Give Send Go campaign for Warren Hudson, Jack Spatalo, and Morgan Seymour raised over $90,000 for anticipated legal expenses. Mississippi Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tyndall issued a public warning that a fraudulent toxicology report was circulating on social media and urged the public not to spread it. A man was separately arrested for making threats against a public official connected to the case. This case is no longer contained within Jackson County. A grand jury is expected within 30 days of this episode. When it convenes, Unsolved Files will have the complete breakdown ready. Subscribe now and turn on notifications. Every development in this case will be covered here first. Nolan Wells was 18 years old. He trusted the people around him to bring him home. That trust is the last thing worth saying about him here, because everything else in this documentary has been about what happened when that trust was not honored. What remains unresolved is not speculation. It is a documented list of open items that the official record has not closed. The security camera footage from Jack Spatalo's grandparents' house has not been publicly released. The GPS coordinate recorded verbally during the CTO distress call does not match the coordinate photographed on the GPS unit itself, and that discrepancy has never been explained. Bart Addington's GPS tracks are absent from the recovered data while every other vessel's tracks are present, and no explanation for that absence has been offered. The CTO distress call was canceled before dispatch with no public accounting of why. The GPS data shows a dock stop at 5:44 p.m. that Warren Hudson did not disclose to investigators. Messages were deleted from Nolan's phone before his mother retrieved it. The state autopsy is complete and sealed, and its findings remain unknown to everyone outside the prosecutor's office and the grand jury process. Those are the open items. Not conclusions. Not accusations. Open items. Christine Wonsley has stated her position publicly and plainly. She is asking for answers. That is all. If you have any information about the events of July 4, 2026 on Horn Island, the Jackson County Sheriff's Office tip line is the place to report it. Every piece of information matters in a case this active. Unsolved Files exists for cases exactly like this one, where the official record raises more questions than it answers and where someone has to keep watching until the full truth surfaces. If this documentary gave you something the mainstream coverage did not, subscribe and share it. The family is still waiting. This channel is not going anywhere until there are answers.